This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Abby Wambach has saved the USA's life in this World Cup! Hall, the runner! Loose ball! It's good! Gonzaga! The flipper still fits!
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag! It gets through Buckner! Here comes Knight and the Mets win it! He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Oh, that's right. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, way up high, or I guess if you're in Canton, all the way in the back. The cheap seats here on Public House Media. We are presented by Squadcast.fm on this beautiful Monday, August 6th. Christian Heimall alongside John Lauder here, as we always are every single Monday. John, an interesting weekend, a busy weekend in the world of sports, although not so much maybe on the actual field / court / pitch / whatever you want to call it, just maybe headlines more than anything else.
I'll tell you where you can get great seats. That's for Terrell Owens' personal enshrinement ceremony. Great
really?
seats there.
Were there a lot of good seats there? I didn't watch because Chattanooga doesn't really have many great seats, but.
Well, no one was there. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, only 3,000 people, and he talked forever.
Yeah, well, he likes to have a little chit chat, doesn't he?
I just don't understand it. I really don't. It's almost embarrassing. We're going to get into the NFL Hall of Fame weekend. The Hall of Fame game made a lot of headlines. So many people were excited that football was back, and then all of a sudden, after about 30 seconds, they realized this isn't football anymore. So they weren't excited. But plenty to get to. Of course, some of the biggest, most unfortunate headlines we will touch on a little bit later. But, John, before we get there, one of the great things, and I don't know if you checked out the guys on last Wednesday, they were talking about it, Max and Keith, but LeBron James and his brand new school, the I Promise School, which is just awesome, and a good job by him to do that, but did a number of interviews in the wake of it and had some comments for the President of the United States, or I should say about the President of the United States. And I don't think he was wrong in terms of saying what he did about how the President has used sports to divide the country. I was a little surprised for him to say that he would never sit across the table from him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually almost feel bad about talking about President Trump because this is exactly what he wants. He wants people in the media. Now, look, we are not CNN or Fox or, a outlet that's going to get millions and millions of listeners or viewers. But any media, I feel like, that's talking about Donald Trump, and I know, obviously, you have to report about the president. I get that. But I feel like we're just giving him way more time, way more energy than he really deserves. But he's such a petulant, embarrassing child of a man. As a parent of two children,
yep.
He reminds me of a child, just a child that's overgrown and has mop-like hair.
Yeah.
And the fact that he would, at this moment, try to pick a fight, quote unquote, with LeBron James after what he did with this school just shows how incredibly dumb he is, quite frankly, because this is the wrong time to be messing with LeBron James. And as anybody who knows me or has heard me before, I am not the biggest LeBron James guy, and I never will be, but this school is an incredible accomplishment. It just shows how much he cares in a way that even Michael Jordan, who I still believe is the greatest basketball player ever, never did things like this, ever. It's just absurd that Trump would be picking a fight with LeBron James right now. It just makes him look small, even more egotistical, and quite frankly, even dumber than we thought he was.
Yeah, and just to give some background here, so for those of you who've been living under a rock all weekend, or maybe you were in Canton and you were just paying attention to that instead, after a couple of interviews that LeBron James did with CNN's Don Lemon, where he was asked about Donald Trump, he said Trump was, quote, using sports to kind of divide us. Sports has never been something that divides people, James told Lemon in a CNN interview. It's always been something that brings someone together. Donald Trump then tweeted Friday night. This is his exact tweet at 11:37 on Friday night. LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon. Two things. Number one, he wasn't just interviewed like 30 seconds ago. It was like 3 days ago, so you're a little late on this. Number two, Don Lemon is one of the most respected reporters in the business. I don't think you can call him the dumbest man on television when you consider that there are legitimately people with the whole shows dedicated to how drunk and belligerent they can get down on the Jersey Shore or down in Florida. His second part of President Trump's tweet, he made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. LeBron, for not having a college degree or never having set foot in a college classroom as a student, is very articulate, incredibly smart, and incredibly well-reasonable. So there's that. And then the last three words, which are hilarious to me, I like Mike, as if he's taking sides in the LeBron James versus Michael Jordan debate. Nobody could care less what Donald Trump thinks in the LeBron-Jordan debate. And what made this even better is that on Saturday, Michael Jordan put out a statement saying, I support LJ. He's doing an amazing job for his community. This is something that is just blowing. He's not only picking a fight with LeBron James, one of the most popular athletes in the world right now, and maybe, to many people, the best player to ever hold a basketball. He's picking a fight with the entire league and the history of the league.
Now, what time did you say the tweet was again?
11:37 p.m.
Shouldn't he be sleeping or reading documents or, talking to his wife?
You've seen how pale he is, right? That's when he wakes up.
I mean, my God, how...
Yeah, and then Adam Silver has even jumped in here. So Adam Silver, who was at the league's NBA Africa game in Johannesburg, South Africa, said LeBron James is one of the all-time greatest NBA players and one of the most accomplished athletes. He runs a very successful media company. He sent hundreds of students to college and just opened a school in Akron where at-risk students will receive free tuition, meals, and transportation. I greatly admire his intelligence and business acumen and have enormous respect and appreciation for what he does in this community. It's insane the amount of people that in this league, Steph Curry, Karl Anthony Towns, Donovan Mitchell, everybody else has come after Donald Trump now on social media. Bradley Beal, Anthony Tolliver, Jared Dudley.
His wife has come out and given a statement in defense of LeBron James against her own husband.
It's hilarious to watch. It's hilarious to watch this, but it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. She even said she's going to visit his school, LeBron James' school. It's unbelievable. So I wish I could say I was surprised, John. I really do. But
it's not surprising at all. It's just another embarrassment that our country has to go through.
Yeah. So and this is what happens, when he's not picking fights with the NFL about kneeling or standing. And we'll get into the NFL and the debacle that was Madden and EA Sports over the weekend as well, because that was hilarious.
Good Lord.
But before we get to all that, so we have this back and forth with LeBron and President Trump. Don't you wish, John, there was some place where two men could go, get locked inside, and battle out their issue? Oh, wait! The UFC, as Conor McGregor will make his return. You talk about a petulant child.
Can you imagine if Donald Trump fought LeBron James in a UFC match?
I would love to watch anybody fight the president in a
God, that would be amazing.
It'd be awesome.
They should do it for pay-per-view, and all the proceeds could go to charity. They'd make so much money.
Oh, so much money. But so Conor McGregor, speaking of petulant children, is going to be back in the UFC coming up. What is it? October 6th. He's going to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov for the unification belt, and it's finally going to happen. This is the fight that people have been wanting to see for a very, very long time, but it is finally here as Conor and Khabib are going to go toe-to-toe, and I can't say that I'm excited about this. I cannot say that I'm happy, because I still don't believe that Conor McGregor should be allowed in the UFC right now, considering what he did in Brooklyn a few months ago.
You know what's delicious? Kebabs.
Kebabs are good, yeah.
Now that's what you just said, right? Or
Khabib.
Oh, Khabib.
Nurmagomedov.
Okay. Yeah, Conor McGregor's a loser, and I don't care about anything that he does, but this is a no-brainer for the UFC. They're going to make tons of money.
Yep.
Everybody wants to see this psychopath fight again. It makes perfect sense. I mean, and it shows that the UFC has no class.
Nope.
They do not care remotely about doing things correctly. It's all about the money. But you know what? We knew that already. So whatever. Who cares?
We did.
You know, I mean, this should not be a surprise to anyone. Okay. And as we all know, I'm certainly not the biggest UFC person, but you know, it's Dana White. I mean, come on, it's Dana White. This should surprise no one.
Conor hasn't fought in almost 2 years. He's going to try to get back his 155-pound belt, which he had to give up because he wasn't fighting. This is my issue, and it has been my issue with Conor McGregor. He wants to be known as the greatest fighter. He believes he's the greatest fighter. He doesn't fight. That's my issue with him. That is my issue. He wants to chase paychecks, which is why he went and got embarrassed by Floyd Mayweather last summer. It's why he's been...
Now, okay. Now, in his defense, who would not have taken that paycheck? That's a fighter.
I understand that. But at the same time, you can't claim that you're the baddest dude in the UFC when you're not actually really in the UFC. You're not fighting anybody. So I'll tell you what I'm more excited for. What I am more excited for is the fact that... So this is UFC 229 on October 6th. I'm even more excited for November 3rd at Madison Square Garden in UFC 230 when Nate Diaz comes back. Nate Diaz will fight Dustin Poirier in UFC 230 on November 3rd, and here's what's awesome. It's the first fight for Diaz since losing to Conor McGregor, which means, of course, John, next summer, it's the trilogy Diaz versus McGregor, the fight that I think people were hoping for 2 years ago and never got.
Yeah, that I think is a fight to be more excited about. I mean, I can't imagine what McGregor's going to be able to bring in October. Can you? I mean,
just watching, he hasn't been in an MMA fight in, like I said, 2 years. This has been boiling up because one of Conor's boys, Artem Lobov, got into something with Khabib, and then Conor threw a truck dolly, which, by the way, anybody who can pick up a truck dolly and throw it at a bus like that is psychotic, number one. But Khabib is just filthy and just nasty. And honestly, I really did. I was fully against Conor. He slowly worked his way for me to become a fan of his because I loved just how much, like, he went from a guy who was just all brash, all talk, to a guy who actually backed it up and was pretty dominant and exciting during those Diaz fights. But Khabib is just so good. And I honestly think that Khabib, I don't want to say embarrasses Conor, but I think Khabib wins, and I don't think it's going to be by decision either.
Yeah, I mean, look. Oh God, I'm not even sure what else to say about Conor McGregor. To me, he shouldn't even be fighting in the UFC. Just looks really, really childish here. There's a lot of childish things going on right now. That's basically where we're at.
Very much so. Real quick, before we go to break, John, here, and again, we are in the Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm on the Public House Media Network. Don't forget to head to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Our poll question, which we will reveal to you coming up after the break. We can talk about this a little bit later on, but it was a very interesting weekend in Major League Baseball in the fact that there weren't many headlines other than the fact that I think Alex Cora is trying to single-handedly bring back the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry to a point where it's going to cause a nuclear disaster.
Well, look, I mean, the Red Sox are like, 700 games above 500, so he really doesn't, he can do whatever he wants.
The Red Sox, I think, are more games above 500 than the Orioles are below 500, which is really scary to think of. I don't know. But anyway, it was just great. I'll say this. It's phenomenal. I think it's great for the sport when the Red Sox and Yankees are both good, and it's even better for the sport when the Red Sox and Yankees actually hate each other. And if you watched Friday night's game after Luis Severino threw at Mookie Betts, and I don't care what anybody says, he's intentionally throwing at Mookie Betts. You don't miss that high and inside to the leadoff guy in the bottom of the first inning. To watch Alex Cora screaming expletives across the diamond at Aaron Boone and the rest of the guys, and then when Steve Pearce hits another home run and you've got Chris Sale and the entire Red Sox dugout chirping at Luis Severino, the Red Sox rivalry, which was so dormant and was only kept alive by the fans, is starting to get really ramped up in the clubhouses now, and I think that's a great thing for Major League Baseball. For sure. They're the two best teams in baseball, despite the fact that the Yankees really struggled this past weekend against Boston. They're still the second best team in baseball after the Red Sox, and they just have to get healthy. And it regardless of your thoughts about the wild card, it's embarrassing that a team as good as the Yankees is going to have to play a one-game playoff. Yep. I'm sorry. It just is. Yep. I'm not really sure how you fix it. I'm not saying get rid of the wild card. I think the wild card's been good for baseball, but you can't have as good a record as the Yankees are going to end up with and have to play in a one-game playoff. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. No, I agree with you there, 100%. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into some of the more unfortunate headlines, and they all happen to be on the gridiron, whether it be the college ranks or the professional ranks. There's been some a lot of just backbiting and just some really, really unfortunate situations going on, and it all starts with OHIO. That's coming up next here in the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast, brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Nicole Kelly, host of Loud and Proud here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Loud and Proud, where we talk about issues facing the disability community. A new show comes out weekly. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Loud and Proud. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back inside the Cheap Seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm. John Lauder, Christian Heimall with you on this Monday, August 6, 2018. I can't believe it, Christian. We're already in August. That's insane. It's insane, right? As a school teacher by trade, it depresses me greatly once the calendar turns to August because in just a month, I'll be back into the school situation. But anyway, some more depressing things going on in the world of football, specifically in the college ranks. Again, if you have been living under a rock, Urban Meyer has been placed on paid, of course it's got to be paid, administrative leave due to the fallout from multiple reports of sexual abuse from one of his assistant coaches, Zach Smith, a wide receivers coach that was with him both at Florida and at Ohio State. Two different occasions, both in 2009 and 2015, against his ex-wife, now Courtney Smith. All of this was sort of dug up and brought to the forefront by really, really good college football reporter, Brett McMurphy, who was fired by ESPN because, God forbid, they keep the good ones, did all the reporting himself, put it on his Facebook page, and then ESPN decided to have him on like 3 times in the same day. And they incorrectly said that he was still a member of ESPN. So basically the worldwide leader is a train wreck. But
he did, however.
So Urban Meyer now, I think he probably should be fired. I can't imagine why he wouldn't be. And then that means that Ohio State has to move forward without, in my opinion, one of the top 5 coaches in college football history. And it's just another case, Christian, of a powerful male in sports, whether it be college, pros. It seems like a lot in college recently, though, whether it be an athletic director, a trainer, a coach, that did not do the right thing, that tried to hide not doing the right thing. And the reason for it, like it is with everything, money and wins.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really difficult. And I hate saying this because I understand it's a lack of institutional control, which is what a lot of these colleges, and I don't want to use to be able to get rid of someone who has either failed to acknowledge, failed to report, or flat out tried to cover up something that is detrimental to the university, to the athletic program, whatever it is. And that's what this is with Urban Meyer. Whether, the fact that he has admitted that he knew about the 2009 incident, that he then comes off and says he knew something about 2015, even though he incorrectly said something at Big Ten Media Days, he, for lack of a better term, had a lack of institutional control. Did not know what was said. He did not know what was going on. Clearly that was not the case. Whether it was reported to him by the assistant coach Zach Smith in general, by the athletic director Gene Smith, or by his own wife, who, according to Courtney Smith, the ex-wife of the now former Ohio State assistant coach Zach Smith, she claims that Urban's wife knew about it and that there were text messages exchanged between Urban's wife and Courtney Smith, the accuser here. There's just too much, especially in the era that we live in. There is too much that has gone on or has not been acknowledged or correctly addressed by Urban Meyer for him to be able to stay at at Ohio State University.
Yeah, and the other problem is, Christian, his program at Florida, yes, 2 national championships, was a train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there was something like 30 arrests while he was there. He had one of the most infamous players in the history of football play for him, and Aaron Hernandez. We know what happened to him. Mm-hmm. Responsible for 5 deaths, including his own, by suicide in jail. Sorry, but Tim Tebow does not, by himself on a scale, eliminate all the issues that were at Florida. We all know how great a human being Tim Tebow is. But, Meyer, the whole thing is a disaster. And yes, he did fire Zach Smith on July 23rd, the same day that a pattern of domestic abuse allegations made by Courtney Smith came to light in the report by Brett McMurphy. But still, then he said the next day he knew about the incident that occurred in 2009, but he denied any knowledge of the other domestic disputes. But now he says he's not really sure what he knew, what he said. I mean, you're an adult. You are the leader of one of the nation's most prestigious college football teams. Okay, you get paid millions of dollars. You get paid way more than any public servant in that state. Okay, I hate when they say this whole lack of administrative control or whatever. That is such a stupid, fed, fabricated line. You need to know what is going on. It is your job. You are the CEO of basically a company, and it's your job to know. And if you waffle on it or you don't take care of it the way you're supposed to, you need to be fired, period.
So now here is my only thing, and this is the only thing I will say to Urban Meyer's defense.
Oh, slippery slope here.
I understand it, but we are in a culture now where we shoot first and ask questions later.
That's true.
So this is the thing we need to remember with regards to Urban Meyer. He is not the one who is being accused of domestic or sexual abuse. From everything we know about the 2009 incident as of now, he followed protocol or whatever it was. It's this 2015 incident which he says he did not know about, then he did know about, or he misspoke, or he failed to whatever at Ohio State. The problem here is if you end up firing Urban Meyer, it is the same. You are accusing him almost the same. And I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't have his job. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I am simply saying is that you are basically calling Urban Meyer an accomplice to this. Whether, from what we understand right now, in the 2009 incident, he followed through protocol, which was brought to him by his superiors. He was told by the athletic director that there was something going on with his assistant coach. And I understand whether it's an off-the-field issue. It was something that Zach Smith felt was a personal issue that did not need to be brought into Urban Meyer. If you don't know what's going on away, in your coach's personal life or in your player's personal life, I can understand where that's an issue. And I understand that you are the CEO, as you said, John. But it's just something that it's a very slippery slope when we start saying that Urban Meyer is just as guilty as Zach Smith when, from what we understand right now, at least in 2009, he followed through with what he was supposed to do with his superiors.
I understand that, but anybody that says that he's as guilty as Zach Smith is a moron, because obviously he's not.
John, there are people who say Joe Paterno is as guilty as Jerry Sandusky. John, there are people who still think that Joe Paterno is just as guilty as Jerry Sandusky.
Yes, but again, anybody that thinks that Paterno or Meyer are as guilty as these other two individuals are morons, because obviously they're not. However, if the police were involved and Meyer claims he didn't know, you can't lie about things like that. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be what's going on here. And the bottom line is, not that this is, the way that this should be looked at, but Ohio State's also got to cover their asses here.
Oh yeah.
Because for all we know, there's more in this that has not been reported.
Right.
Okay. Brett McMurphy is not Courtney Smith's sister. Okay. Right. I mean, there could be other stuff that we do not know about. Mm-hmm. And it boggles my mind, and I know I'm now sort of going off elsewhere, but Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio still have their jobs at Michigan State, and there were issues with their basketball players and their football players as well. And we know all the stuff with the gymnastics program there with Larry Nassar. I mean, what is with the Big Ten? I mean, they are a disaster. Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, these are pillar universities in, the most prestigious, in terms of historical, conference in college sports. I mean, they're in bad shape. I mean, there has just been bad news after bad news for the Big Ten. Not that that's what matters. Obviously, it's the victims that matter. But from a sports perspective, it is crazy, what has gone down with the Big Ten. They're really dealing with, a lot over the last, 7-8 years at this point.
Right. And let me just say this. I do not think by any stretch of the imagination that Urban Meyer deserves to keep his job. I don't believe that at all, because I do believe part of the reason why domestic abuse, sexual abuse, is allowed to continue and is still something that happens is because there are people who those accusers and those perpetrators can hide behind. I'm not saying Zach Smith hid behind Urban Meyer. I'm not saying Urban Meyer said, hey, get behind me, I'll take the shrapnel, you're going to be okay. I'm not saying that at all. Like what I believe some college coaches do with their players. For instance, like in Art Briles at Baylor.
Yes.
What I am saying is that the reason it's allowed to continue, the reason why these crimes continue to happen, is because these guys are able to hide behind people. If you start treating the accomplice just as bad as the accuser, I don't think you will have many people covering up for their buddies, whoever it may be. I said this about Greg Hardy. I think if you there is such a thing, and there is such a crime as accomplice to murder. If you actually have a crime of accomplice to domestic assault, to sexual abuse, then I think, and people can start being convicted of that, you will see less and less of the crime. I personally believe that, because people aren't going to stick up for their boy if they know they could also go down for it as well. So, but here's my question, John. Why in the world does a college football coach like an Art Briles, Urban Meyer, Tommy Tuberville, even Rick Pitino to switch over to college basketball, they lose their job for lack of institutional control? However, Jerry Jones, who has employed Greg Hardy, who has employed Ezekiel Elliott, Tom Coughlin when he employed Josh Brown, and on the professional ranks, these guys who are just as important and in just as much control over their players and their employees, how are they still able to keep their jobs? It's almost as if we demand a higher level of competence from these college coaches than we do these professional coaches and these professional athletes who more people look up to.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I mean, the bottom line for me is I don't care if it's Pee-wee, high school, I don't care.
Right.
Bottom line is, if there's sexual assault going on, if you're involved in any way, there has to be punishment and it has to be serious.
Yep.
You're inside the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm. John Lauder, Christian Heimall with you. Our poll question, it's a real simple one. Should Urban Meyer be fired, yes or no? You can go to the Cheap Seats by Public House Media's Facebook page, answer that one. I think we're both in agreement, Christian, that the answer to that is yes. If that does happen, and obviously I know the football side of it is not that important, but this is a sports show. Mm-hmm. What does Ohio State do moving forward? I said this earlier. I stand by it. I believe Urban Meyer is one of the 5 greatest college football coaches ever. I've got Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, Meyer, and then honestly, I'm having trouble with the other 2 because, my biggest problem with sports in general is we tend to really romanticize, sports from way back when. It's my biggest problem with baseball.
Right.
Babe Ruth hit, 700, and X amount of home runs. I get that. But Babe Ruth was also incredibly overweight, smoked, drank, and ate a ton of hot dogs before every game. Okay. Urban Meyer Babe Ruth would not have been the player he was in, 1918 if he was playing in 2018. Okay. Now, granted, he'd also be training differently and all that. I understand. But it's hard for me to compare Urban Meyer to Newt Rockne. Okay. Yeah. But what I do know is Urban Meyer has 3 national championships and has the 3rd highest winning percentage in the history of college football. Oh, and by the way, the 2 coaches ahead of him, both Notre Dame guys, Frank Leahy and Newt Rockne, only had 105 and 107 wins, where Urban Meyer has 177. Yeah. In fact, the top 5 in winning percentage, Rockne, Leahy, Meyer, George Woodruff, Barry Switzer, none of them have as many wins as Urban Meyer, and he's at an 851 winning percentage. Now, again, I know it's not really about the football, but this would be a gigantic loss for Ohio State. And I don't know where they would go from here, because you cannot replace an Urban Meyer. It's like trying to replace a Nick Saban. Right. I don't know what they are going to do, but they are going to have a hard time doing it. I know that.
They are. And as a team that preseason right now, you look at ESPN, they have them at number 3 in the preseason and picked to win the Big East, or win the Big Ten, Eastern Division there. I don't know what this does. I really don't, because, when you look at what they have and what they offer, I wasn't impressed with them last year. I'm sorry, I just wasn't, and I don't know if there's anybody on this team that is going to impress me this year. And I'm sorry, I don't care what you say. The college football runs through the SEC. So unless you're going to beat Alabama and Georgia, it doesn't matter to me. And without Urban Meyer, I don't see Ohio State having that ability. No. And there's Clemson too. Forget it. Without Urban Meyer, there's just no way.
Right. But anyway, just a crazy situation with Urban Meyer. Obviously, there'll be updates continuously with this situation. So make sure you're tuning into the Cheap Seats on Wednesday and Friday, and then even next week as well. We'll continue on this real quick. Before we go to break, Christian, Jalen Hurts, who has not spoken at all to the media, finally came out this weekend, talked about the Alabama quarterback situation. Obviously, last year, The last 2 years has been the starting quarterback, and then in the national championship game was struggling, and then Tua Tagovailoa, something like that. The freshman last year from Hawaii came in, threw the winning touchdown to beat Clemson, and now there's the quarterback battle going on in the spring. And Hurts had some interesting things to say. I clearly seemed a little frustrated, which I understand. He's been the starting quarterback basically for 2 years at the most, at the best college football team in the land. But at the same time, if you're not the best guy, you're not the best guy. But an interesting situation there. It's a good situation for Nick Saban because you can't really go wrong with either of them. But he obviously has to make a difficult decision.
Yeah, I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't think this is a difficult decision at all. I really don't. I mean, to be a quarterback, don't you have to be able to throw the football? And Jalen Hurts, that's been his number one knock, is that he's not a great passer. Tua Tagovailoa, however, is a pretty good passer, and we saw that in the national championship game, especially in the second half. So I think Tua, I understand that Jalen Hurts 26-2 as a starter, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception last year, but this kid, this freshman last year, comes in and throws 3 touchdowns in the second half and wins a national title. So I've seen this report from many people, and I think it's a right move. Jalen Hurts needs to redshirt this year, be available if absolutely necessary, and as long as he doesn't play 4 games, he can transfer out after this year, and he has 2 seasons of eligibility to go elsewhere. So I don't think it's that difficult a decision for Nick Saban.
Fair. To play devil's advocate, Nick Saban's never had a really great quarterback, and he's won a million national championships. And his teams are at their best when they're running the football, they're controlling clock, and they're dominating with defense, and Jalen Hurts is perfect for that. And with Tua, yes, better thrower, but you're also going to get more mistakes and more interceptions. And is that necessarily the best thing? I don't know. I would be surprised if he went with Hurts. But I also do wonder if that could come back to haunt him. I don't know. Nick Saban tends to not make a mistake, but we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll do some pro football, the Hall of Fame inductions this past weekend, the Hall of Fame game with some controversy. And one of our, one of the interesting names in the world of football, Mr. Johnny Football, had quite the, let's say, auspicious debut for his new team in the CFL. Yes. We'll get to that momentarily. You are listening to The Cheap Seats right here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back in the cheap seats on Public House Media, presented by Squadcast.fm. Christian Heimall, John Lauder here with you. Don't forget to head to our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on our poll question. Pretty straightforward, yes or no question. We talked about it last segment. Should Urban Meyer be relieved of his duties as the head football coach at The Ohio State University? I think John and I are both in agreement here. He should be, but you can head to our Facebook page and tell us your thoughts as well. If you want to get to us on social media and maybe dispute one of our points or anything else that we say, or if you just want to say hi, head on over to Twitter. You can find John at John JON_LAUDER. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Heimall, CHRISHEIMALL. Now, John, obviously the whole Urban Meyer, Zach Smith, Ohio State thing took over a lot of the headlines Friday night in the world of sports. Saturday, though, it was kind of sandwiched, those Ohio State headlines sandwiched by the NFL. First, on Thursday night, you had the Hall of Fame game, in which we saw, I guess, what football is going to be like this year. Not many people were happy about it, with some of the unnecessary roughness calls, I guess, late in the second half of those games. But this is something that we've kind of had to be prepared for more than anything else. And I was a little nervous considering earlier in the week you had referees unable to give the Eagles answers on what was an unnecessary roughness hit.
Yeah, apparently NFL teams were given a video that explains what the helmet hitting rule is, and nobody understood it.
Even the referees?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So how could the NFL's officiating committee put together a video that's supposed to explain something that the players and referees need to understand, and no one understands it?
That this is the
This sounds like something Donald Trump would do.
This sounds, yes, it does. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like we are headed towards Sarcastaball. It sounds like that is going to become our new favorite pastime. But who knows?
Or basketball.
Basketball could be interesting.
Oh, there should be basketball. What a great
game. It really
game.
should. But yeah, so as always, there's going to be a learning curve. And this is where the NFL has had these issues. We had this issue with the catch rule where they added words, they added language to try to clarify things when really they just made it worse. And the only way to fix the catch rule was to take that language away and make it simpler. I feel like it's going to be the same exact way with this targeting and helmet rule now in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult. We're going to hate it for about 2 years, and then they're going to get rid of the same language, and it's going to go back to being what it was, if not maybe even simplified.
Yeah, well, I want to read a tweet by Bucky Brooks, who works obviously for the NFL Network. Ex-NFL player, was a scout for the Panthers and the Seahawks. Made a really interesting tweet about this on August 2nd. After watching 3.5 quarters of this game, I have no idea how coaches are going to teach defensive players how to make a legal tackle, legal in quotes, in the NFL. I'm looking at textbook wrap-up tackles drawing flags tonight. I just don't know how you can legislate contact out of the game. That last sentence is super important. I just don't know how you can legislate contact out of the game. Here's the answer, Bucky. You can't, because it's freaking football, okay? If you don't want to play football, don't play football, okay? When I was younger, despite being obese and not athletic, I wanted to play football, and my parents said no because they didn't want my head to turn into a bowl of spaghetti, okay? So they didn't let me play. And now, I'm still pretty dumb, but at least my head's not a bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be in a contact sport like football, don't play football, okay? Now, look, I'm all for trying to make it safer, improve the helmets. Don't you remember when they were glorifying hits in the early 2000s? You need to move away from that, okay?
There was a whole segment on ESPN on a football show called Jacked Up.
Yes.
We invented the truck stick in video games.
Correct. Oh, the truck stick is awesome. But you can't legislate contact out of the game. You can't do it. Right. So making up or putting together new rules that make it impossible to understand what a legal tackle is will actually make the game more dangerous.
Agreed. Now, here's what I do like about the new rule, and this has been my issue with football for the last decade, if not longer. We go after these defensive players for launching and using the crown of their helmet as a weapon. How come we don't go after running backs when they do the same thing, or wide receivers, or tight ends? So I like that aspect of the rule.
I do too.
A running back is doing it, to themselves and to their opponents. Here is where you just make it a lot simpler. You will never be able to prove, I don't care what video replay says, I don't care what a post-game interview says, you will never be able to prove intent in a hit. You will never be able to prove malicious intent. Nobody, unless you play for the Saints a few years ago, willingly goes into football trying to maim or injure their opponent. They don't try to do that. I don't care what anybody says. Is it a violent game? 1,000%. Is it a vicious bit of human carnage? It can be. But no player is trying to go out there and actually hurt somebody and potentially end their career, let alone shorten their life with these hits. So you cannot prove intent. That language needs to come out right away, in my opinion. What you do need to have here is it needs to be illegal to, I understand leading with your helmet. But the problem is leading with your helmet can change based on if a running back or a ball carrier ducks down. It can change based off of your trajectory and their trajectory if they're going up for a catch. There's a lot that can change there. So I think and I don't know the wording, John, but is this a reviewable thing? Is this something that if a referee throws a flag and is about to eject a safety, can they go and review it to ensure that they weren't actually leading with their head, that it's just because of the way that the ball carrier came down that contact was made?
Oh, and good. Let's review more stuff so the games will be 5 hours now.
But if you're doing it in interest of the integrity of the game to be able to keep those kind of hits there, I'm okay with that.
No, yeah.
And this is the problem that we have. This is the catch-22. It's, do you want the game to be safer or do you want the game to be better officiated? Which one do you want? Because apparently we can't have both.
Yeah. Well, apparently we can't have peaceful protest and the national anthem. So
that's true.
The NFL is an abject disaster. Anyway, let's move on to something positive about the NFL. The Hall of Fame induction was Sunday, always really fantastic, but this year even more so, Christian. The class this year is really something.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Randy Moss, Jerry Kramer, Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Brian Dawkins, Terrell Owens, who wasn't there. Just an unbelievable group of players. And, of course, Owens had his own thing at Chattanooga. Just an incredible group of players. And a lot of great heartfelt speeches, as it always is. In my opinion, the Football Hall of Fame is the best we've got. And their enshrinement ceremony, to me, is the best one, too. Really, really, cool to see it again, as we do every year.
It'd be really nice, though, if we put a time limit on these speeches. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
I just don't. I don't watch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I don't watch any of them, honestly, because I think the speeches go on too long.
They do.
What I'll do is, if there's one I want to watch, I know I can find the full video somewhere. So I did think it was pretty cool when I got to wake up on Sunday morning and I got to see Brian Dawkins come out in his usual crawl. That was kind of fun. That was pretty sweet. I hate the Eagles, but Brian Dawkins was a bad dude.
He was.
Randy Moss was incredible and should have been in. Or T.O. should have been in sooner, in my opinion, as well. But it's just great to see this, and I think you're right. I think the NFL does a really good job, even though I agree that T.O. got in too late. They do a really good job of actually recognizing the greats of their game based on what they did to impact the future of the game.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about Owens?
I think he was one of probably the three most dominant receivers of all time.
I agree.
And
he should have been in first ballot.
Yeah, he should have been in first ballot. And listen, this brings up another argument that I don't care what you do off the field. I'm sorry, I don't. There needs to be some sort of separation in the voters' minds. You don't like the fact that he's doing sit-ups in his driveway with his agent saying no comment. That's your issue. But you know what? Terrell Owens and Randy Moss changed the game, changed the course of football. And they did it for the betterment of football, in my opinion. You don't like the fact that he played for 9 different teams or however many he played for. There's going to be some idiot who doesn't vote LeBron James into the Hall of Fame because he played for 3 different teams. There's going to be some moron who that's his reasoning behind it. I'm sorry, but get over yourselves. I think our writers have way too much power in this, and they take themselves too seriously with their vote. It's why I applaud the baseball writers who publish their ballots, and why I applaud the ones who give up their vote because they don't like how the rest of their compatriots are voting and their voting standards, quote unquote.
Well, it's the same reason why Mariano Rivera is not going to get 100% of the vote.
If Cal Ripken didn't, Tony Gwynn didn't, nobody's getting 100%. It's not possible.
Yeah, Mariano Rivera is a better baseball player than either of them, but yeah, you're right.
Just put a time, just 12 minutes. 12-minute time limit on your speeches. Wrap it up.
All right, fair enough. last thing before we go to break. Johnny Manziel playing football again. Johnny Manziel,
supposedly
fucking hard at football, was traded to the Montreal Alouettes. And I only remember that from Beyond the Pride. No, from Beyond the Pride, like that we used to do at WRHU for the locker room. We used to do a segment for our WRHU sports shows on Sunday nights, Beyond the Pride, where we talk about where former. Yeah, that's right. Where former Hofstra Pride players had gone, and a bunch of them played in the CFL, and a couple of them played for the Montreal Alouettes. I remember that. But yeah, so he was traded from the Hamilton Tiger Cats, great names, to the Montreal Alouettes. Was named the starter and promptly threw 4 interceptions in a half, and then sat down.
Yeah,
and his career's over, and he needs to go away.
Who was the guy for the Bills who did that this past year? What was
Nathan Peterman? He threw 5.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman threw 5. But here's the thing, and I'm never gonna. I don't like defending Johnny Football just because I didn't really like him that much when he was in college, and I certainly didn't like him in the pros. The team that he got traded from was the team who picked him off 4 times, so they kind of had the playbook on Johnny already. It's not exactly fair. I would like to see what happens when when he's playing a team that doesn't have the ability to game plan against them for 6 weeks in practice and then get to actually play against them. That's not exactly fair, but
that's true.
He still wasn't good, so that's not excusing his performance or lack thereof.
No, he was terrible.
God awful. Just really no bueno. No
all
bueno
right.
at all.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more pro football because you know what? It's a football Monday because at this point, it's football every day. Because football's the best. And we'll do our Mojo Monday as well. We'll wrap this up. Football. Here inside the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network. And, of course, we're presented by Squadcast.fm.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, host of Coffee with Keith and Katie, here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Little Billy Joel to wrap things up here inside the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm. John Lauder, Christian Heimall with you on a Monday morning, August 6, 2018. Make sure you go to the Cheap Seats by Public House Media's Facebook page. Answer the poll question: should Urban Meyer be fired? Yes or no? There's really only one correct answer, and if you vote no, we have to kick you off the internet. So choose wisely.
Please hand in your Facebook password.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. Hand in your computer, and we'll take it from there.
Exactly.
So let's talk video games, Christian, specifically football.
I love video games.
Oh God, me too. It's really hard with children to play video games, but they're the best.
It's really hard with live-in girlfriends to play them too, but unless they play them with you, like Star Wars, which is always nice.
That is nice.
Yes.
Anyway, so Madden did a dumb thing. And I'll let you explain it.
Listen. EA Sports did a dumb thing. Just John Madden's name is on it, so.
Yeah, no, it wasn't John Madden that did the dumb thing.
Right.
It was EA Sports that did the dumb thing. Go ahead.
They did the dumb thing.
Tell the people what EA Sports did, Christian. Tell them.
In EA Sports Madden NFL 2019, there is a song apparently on the soundtrack called Big Bank by YG, where there's a lyric from Big Sean that says, You boys all cap, I'm more Colin Kaepernick. Guess what part of that sentence was edited out of Madden 2019?
Boys?
No, Colin Kaepernick. His name was edited out as if it was like a curse word. This was notified. Let's see here. There's someone on Twitter, Jean Clerville, who says, bad enough Kaepernick at Kaepernick7 still not signed, but now they even edit his name out in this year's EA Madden NFL during Big Sean vs. SMH. Kaepernick's girlfriend and radio host, Nessa Diab, quotes the tweet, says, oh, EA Madden NFL, who told you to edit Colin's name out? NFL, NFLPA, curious minds want to know. Big Sean then tweets out, it's disappointing and appalling the NFL and EA took Kaepernick's name out of my verse on Big Bang for Madden 19 like it was a curse word. When he's not a curse, he's a gift. Nobody from my team approved any of this. Now, not quickly enough, EA Sports released a statement. This was their statement. We made an unfortunate mistake with our Madden NFL soundtrack. Members of our team misunderstood the fact that while we don't have rights to include Colin Kaepernick in the game, this doesn't affect soundtracks. We messed up, and the edit should never have happened. We will make it right with an update to Madden NFL 19 on August 6th that will include the reference again. We meant no disrespect, and we apologize to Colin, to YG, and Big Sean, to the NFL, to all of their fans and our players for this mistake. So, I guess today you can start listening to that song with the actual lyric when playing the game.
They are such dirty, bold-faced liars.
Wow.
They're like, give me a break, you didn't know. I mean, come on.
I enjoy how they didn't actually mention anybody of their team who made the mistake, like who was in charge of music. But, when you go through the credits, you can go through the credits of a video game and actually find out who was in charge of music editing. I'm surprised nobody's found out who those people were in charge and blasted them on social media.
They probably already released an update taking that credit out, and that person's been fired.
Probably true. But listen, I mean, here's my issue, and this has always been my issue with. And I've had this feeling about music for a very long time, music and movies. If you, as an artist, if you don't like your songs being edited, don't do anything to make them edited. Don't include any lyrics that require that. However, in this instance, why in the world did Madden agree to have that song on their soundtrack if they were going to edit any piece of it? This is just my personal opinion. Why are you going to allow any song on your soundtrack if you have to have edits out of that? People, listen. When a movie or a TV show or a song lyric is edited, you know what the lyric is. More often than not, you know what that word actually is. So you're not fooling anybody with it. So why even allow that to happen? When you put yourself in this kind of situation, bad things happen. And EA Sports did a very bad thing.
Yeah, and then to tweet that tweet trying to abscond themselves of any. I mean, it's like, just, you're embarrassing yourself. Stop it. Like, you look stupid.
Yep.
It's just, oh, good Lord.
Can we just get NCAA football back, please? Please?
It's really pathetic.
Yeah, it's bad. Anyway. So almost a little bit on a lighter note, John. The Titans did at least try to make something correct. Titans are trying to replace safety Jonathan Cyprian, who's out with a torn ACL, said Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was looking to bring in a couple of people, Ladarius Webb, Mike Mitchell, Kenny Vaccaro, and Eric Reed. They were all supposed to come in on Friday. Now, of course, Eric Reed was one of the ones who was right there with Colin Kaepernick, kneeling during the national anthem, and took a lot of flack. Unfortunately for Eric Reed, it seemed as though it wasn't going to happen because he did miss his opportunity to get to Tennessee because of bad weather on Friday. So he never actually got there for a chance to try out. But it did seem, though, that the Titans were at least trying to get Eric Reed back onto the NFL roster.
I mean, couldn't he take another flight another day?
Maybe, but I do believe, if I remember correctly, I do think the Titans have already signed somebody. I think they signed Kenny Vaccaro.
Oh, yes, correct. So forget that.
Yeah, so, I mean, when you're bringing all four guys in at once, it's kind of tough, but, It's just how it happens. I at least like the fact that there are teams. I wish teams would actually, like Seattle would actually bring in Colin Kaepernick. I wish Baltimore would have actually done it. I wish a number of teams would actually do it. But if it starts with Eric Reed, then so be it. At least something is going right in that direction because Eric Reed is still a decent enough player to be on an NFL roster.
For sure. Of course.
All right, let's wrap up shop here as we do every single Monday with our Mojo Monday, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Somebody has mojo. John, lead us off.
I'm going to give some bad mojo to a player in the NFL who has left his team and now is bashing them, which I hate. Okay? There's nothing more annoying than leaving a team. And by the way, a team where you didn't do all that much and then bashing them afterwards. So Kelvin Benjamin, who is now on the Buffalo Bills, and by the way, his quarterbacks on the Buffalo Bills right now are nothing to sneeze at. Nope. Josh Allen apparently has looked great, but it's preseason. Nobody cares. Apparently, Christian, the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton, who has won an MVP award, by the way, held Kelvin Benjamin back. Apparently, he could have been a better player than he has been.
I didn't realize Kelvin Benjamin was the next Randy Moss. I didn't know that.
Well, let me give you his stats because they're really incredible. As a rookie, he had 73 receptions for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Not bad.
Nope.
In his second, he missed all of 2015 with an injury.
Okay.
2016, he came back, had 63 catches, so 10 less, for 940 yards, so 60 less, and 7 touchdowns. That would be 2 less.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2017, between Carolina and Buffalo, he had 48 catches for 692 yards and 3 touchdowns.
That's not good.
No, that's really not good. Okay, he was a first-round pick out of Florida State, but Cam Newton was holding him back, and the Panthers were holding him back. Okay, Now look, is Cam Newton the most accurate quarterback ever? No, he's not. He's a career 59% passer, but he's also won an MVP award.
Yeah.
Okay, shut your mouth. I don't want to hear about it. I hate when players do this. That's my bad mojo for Mondays. It annoys me to no end.
Kelvin Benjamin in 2017 ranked, hang on, I'm almost there, 89, 96. There, look at that. He's 79th in receptions.
Yeah.
79th in receptions in the NFL last year. In terms of yards, he ranked 49th. Woo. And in terms of touchdowns,
I actually thought that'd be lower.
Yeah, in terms of touchdowns, he had 3 more than I did last year and ranked 77th. So clearly he deserves more credit than DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams or Antonio Brown.
Or Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, clearly. So I love it.
Like,
Isn't it
what
always
an
fun
idiot.
when people go away? Gosh, you always bash your ex after they broke up with you.
Yeah.
So,
ridiculous.
I'm not going to go in the sports realm for my good mojo. I'm just going to make it short and sweet. It's August 6th, 2018, which means 30 years ago today, Mike and Linda Heimall tied the knot. So happy anniversary, Mom and Dad.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Years. Yeah, that's awesome. And just means that I'm about to turn 30. So, yay. Really appreciate that. Always fun.
You're old, man.
I know. We're getting there. Anyway, big thanks to you guys for listening to the show. As always, subscribe, rate, review, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, all that fun stuff. Head over to thephmedia.com as well. Get yourself some awesome show swag. Follow John on Twitter at JON_LAUDER. You could follow me on Twitter at Chris Heimall, CHRISHEIMALL. Also, head to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on the poll question, should Urban Meyer be fired from his job at The Ohio State University? As always, there's a brand new show coming out on Wednesday and Friday. John and I will be back here next week, next Monday, in the Cheap Seats, which, as always, is presented to you by Squadcast.fm on the Public House Media Network. We appreciate it, everybody, all the all-around support. Love you guys so much, and we'll see you next week in the Cheap Seats.